Welcome back to Fusion Friday. In this week, what we're going to do is we are going to spend some time designing out this metal cast iron handrail that we see down in the bottom here. To do this, we're going to use a new tool in the Create space called the Revolve tool. And we're also going to explore how you can create broken views and section views in the drawing space of Fusion 360. So let's jump right into it. To design the pipe itself, I'm going to want to start by creating a sketch right on the front face there. Now, if we look at the section view in the bottom left, that's actually going to be the key to figuring out how we make this pipe. We see that if we look at this pipe, there's a hollow section in the middle of the pipe that's not showing those kind of crossed hash lines, meaning that that is a hollow piece and that those crossed hash lines are a solid part of the pipe. Okay, so as we're looking at this, if we look in the bottom left of the part, we see that the inner diameter of the pipe has a diameter of 28 millimeters, while the outer diameter of the pipe has a diameter of 44 millimeters. And we also see that there's a radius of 50 millimeters going along the 90-degree part of the pipe. So I'm just going to draw that in this view right now. That's what I'm going to be kind of focusing on. So I'm going to start with my two circles, one that has an outer diameter of 44. And notice that I'm not starting on the origin. This is actually intentional. But I'm going to start just slightly above my origin and start with my outer diameter of 44. And then what I'm going to do is add that dimension of 50 so that this pipe can kind of curve around later using the Revolve tool. And you'll see what I mean soon. So I'm just going to lock it in place horizontally with the origin and then give it a dimension of 50 millimeters. Now my sketch is fully constrained. And then finally, I just want to come back in and add the inner diameter of our pipe, which is 28 millimeters. Okay, and then I'll finish the sketch. So now is when we're going to go ahead and use that Revolve tool. So what Revolve does is it takes any sort of sketch that you have and it revolves it around some axis. So in this case, we're going to actually use the origin as our axis of rotation. So if we go up and we create a revolve, we can just click on this outer kind of section of our tubes here. If we just click on that and we select the x-axis down here as our axis to revolve, you'll notice that it kind of revolves it around like a donut. Okay, but we don't want the entire thing to be revolved. We only want, again, it's a 90-degree pipe, so we only want 90 degrees of rotation. So in this little text box or over here on the right, we could just change that to 90 degrees. And now you'll see we have that kind of rounded out shape that we want. We'll go ahead and press OK. So that's one part of our pipe. Okay? Now, before we can start adding each of the ends of it, like the circular piece that we could see in the top view and that kind of funkier looking connection that we see looking at it from the side, we need to first extrude our pipe to the correct dimension. So if we're looking at just the bottom portion, we can see that we can now just click on this bottom face. We don't have to create a new sketch. We could just extrude right on that bottom face and we can extrude it down the 40 millimeters that it's showing in the drawings and then press OK. And then similarly, we want to extrude this side portion. And this one is the one that goes out for 700 millimeters. This is the longer section of our rail that we'll need to come back in and split up later. But we'll go ahead and click OK with that. And now you see we have our pipe fully modeled out to the dimensions that we want. And we didn't even have to create any additional sketches aside from that one that we started with the revolve, which is really nice. Now, in order to do each of the connections on the bottom, we will need to create two new sketches. So the first sketch we'll do is just the bottom one. So we'll go ahead and create a sketch along the bottom face of our pipe there. Okay? And if we're looking at this, we're going to have to use both the top view and the section view shown in order to find all the information needed. First thing that I want to do is just create a projection. of this bottom of the pipe that we already have modeled. So I'm going to project this bottom pipe just to give myself a center point to reference from. Okay, now the connection piece to the bottom of this pipe starts with a circular piece that has a diameter of 80 millimeters. So I'll go ahead and model that in there. And we notice that there are 4 holes along the top view that are evenly spaced. Okay, and if we look down at the section view, we see that those holes are 4 holes at 7 millimeters of diameter, and they fall along a circular path of 64 millimeters. So first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and sketch out my 64 millimeter path and make this a construction line. I can do this by pressing X on my keyboard once I have the circle selected. From there, what I want to do is start to draw in just one of my circles. So one of those 7 millimeter circles along this path. So we'll go ahead and draw one of them, make it 7 millimeters. Okay, you'll see that it's already locked in place with the path, and the last thing that we need to do to get this fully constrained is just make it centered with our origin using the horizontal and vertical constraint. Now you'll see that this circle is fully constrained. And then to duplicate this pattern, I just want to go in and create a circular pattern of this circular shape, and you want to make sure that you're clicking the edge of the circle. Don't click on the center, just click on the edge or the perimeter of that circle. And its center point is this shared center between all of our circles. And we want 4 of those total, and then we're good. So that's it for that sketch. So now we could go ahead and finish that sketch up. And then we want to extrude this part of the pipe up. Okay, so if we're looking at our drawing, we see that that 40 millimeters is measured from the very bottom of this circular connection. So we want to go ahead and extrude this up. And again, if we just click on this kind of outer rim, the holes will not be extruded, which is exactly what we want. But we just want to make sure that we're extruding up by the 7 millimeters that's called out in the drawings. So we'll go ahead and make this -7 since our arrow right now is pointed down, and we'll click OK. All right, so we still got to do one more thing in order to finish this part off, but I'm going to come back and do that at the end. We need to add in those fillets, but using the fillet tool in Fusion, we can actually add in all of our fillets in just one step. So we're going to go ahead and do that at the very end once we've sketched out this other view on the front face here. So let's get started with that. This one is a little bit more complicated, but we should still have all of the information that we need to figure this out. So again, we'll create a sketch along the front face here. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing as before. We're just going to start by projecting the already existing shape. Click OK. And then we're going to start with that 80 millimeter diameter again. If we look at the section view, we see that from the very top of this little funky shape to the bottom, we still start with an 80 millimeter circle. We're just adding some intermediate steps along the way. Okay? So we still start with that 80 millimeter circle, and we also still have that 64 millimeter path where those circles, the smaller 7 millimeter circles, fall in line with. So we'll start with both of those same 2 things, same as before. Okay, now where this gets a little different is this circle kind of has additional kind of curved out shapes along the center there. So looking at this, we see that the outer edge of our circle has a radius of 27 curvature. So we can start with a 54 millimeter diameter circle, and we can go ahead and draw that on in. Okay, now we also see that there's these 2 kind of radius 15 curves at the top, and we see that they're spaced out by 50 millimeters. Okay, that might be a little unclear from the drawing, but these 2 radius of 15 curves are spaced out by 50 millimeters. Okay, so what we could do is we could also add another circle. This one only being a diameter of 50 millimeters, and this one is also a construction line. Okay, and from there, we could go in and add all of our missing circles now. So along this top portion, we have our radius of 15, so diameter of 30, and you'll notice that it falls perfectly tangent with this circle already. So we could go ahead and click OK. And then we just want to make sure that it's locked horizontally with the center. Okay, and then we could go ahead and just create our two circles that kind of connect it off to the sides there. Okay, so we also see that those have a radius of 15 that kind of curve these down into each other. So we'll start with just another two circles, kind of just off to the side for now, and then we'll go ahead and add some constraints to make them better. But both of those will have a diameter of 30. Then I'm just going to kind of click and drag and hold to get them into the rough position, and then go ahead and add some tangent constraints. So using this tangent constraint from this circle to this circle, and then these two circles together, I can put in this last little circle. Because what I'm going to do is create a circular pattern of these three circles and then this one in the top center as well. Okay? And this one also has a diameter of 7. It falls in line with that circle that we drew that has a diameter of 64. And if we make it horizontal with that, now we have a fully constrained sketch. So now we can go ahead and create our circular pattern. So I want to create it with this circle, this circle, this circle, and this circle about this center point. And I don't want 3 of them, I only want 2. And you'll notice that it just mirrors that exact same shape down below. And I'll click OK. So right now this kind of looks like a little bit of a mess, and we could go in and trim it, but that might actually remove some of our constraints. So I'm actually just going to leave this sketch just as it is, and just be careful and intentional while extruding all of these portions to make sure I'm only extruding the geometry that I actually need for my shape. So I'll go ahead and finish the sketch. Okay. To extrude this one also has a thickness of 7. So we could go ahead and extrude this portion, this portion, this portion, and all these portions around the outer edge of our pipe, just making sure to get these little kind of nooks and crannies in the center there. This one also goes back by 7. Again, notice that the 700 millimeters goes from the very corner of our pipe here, where this bend changes into a straight shape, to the very edge of our pipe. So that means we have to extrude backwards by 7 millimeters. Okay? And now we have our pipe shape. So last thing that we need to do, as I mentioned, we need to add in those fillets that we see. So looking at the drawing, we see that there is a radius of 2 fillet along the outer edge of both of these connections, and a radius of 4 fillet where they actually connect to the metal pipe itself. And again, to do this, we could actually use one fillet tool to get all of these fillets. The fillet tool has the option to add a bunch of sections into it, so that way you don't have a million fillets down here in your timeline. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create a fillet for just the outer edges first. So I'm going to click on the outer edge of that and the outer edge of this. That one has a radius of 2. And that's looking good. Okay. And to create the inner portion, all I have to do is go over here and click on this add section set. Now, if I click on both of these edges that connect these fittings to the pipe itself and make that a radius of 4, you'll see that we have 2 distinct fillets, but it's all one fillet tool with Infusion, which makes it very helpful. Okay. And that's the modeling portion of this done. So we have our pipe modeled out. Now what we want to do is go ahead and assign it the proper material. So if I go into my body, I will assign the physical material, go down into my metal, find the iron cast, right here, and we'll just assign it to our model. Okay, and that's the last thing that we need to do in this workspace before we move on to the drawing space. Moving on to the drawing space, what we want to do is go ahead and open up the design menu, go down to drawing from design. We'll just save it. I'll I'll just call this Fusion Friday, but you should name this with the correct naming convention. And we will go ahead and press OK to create our first set of drawings. Okay. Now, when I'm doing this, I actually want to start my drawing with the top view. I want to be looking down on my drawing. This should be fine. What I'm going to actually do is I want this to be oriented slightly differently. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this for now, click OK. And then right now, this view is teeny tiny. This doesn't really show a good kind of measurement of our pipe. So we're going to go ahead and make this a little bit larger. Okay, 1 to 5, it's still kind of small. We can't really see what's going on up here. So I'm going to make it 1 to 3. Even 1 to 2. I'll do 1 to 2 and then click close. Okay, now you'll notice an instant problem. The drawing is hanging way outside of our workspace. Even if I go ahead and rotate this to the side, which I can do if I modify and rotate, I can rotate this by 90 degrees. And it's a little funky to rotate using this tool. And then you could just type in 90 degrees as the angle to change, and it'll rotate it. Okay, but you'll notice, even still, my pipe at this scale is extending well beyond the boundaries of my page. So what we're going to have to do is create what's called a break view to kind of trim this down, because this entire section of the pipe, it all has the same cross-sectional area. So we don't need to come back and reference this entire thing in our drawing. We could kind of condense it down using that break view to save room on our page. To add one of these in Fusion, there is a menu option in the Create called Break View. And then if we just click on our drawing, you'll see this little black bar show up. Okay, this black bar shows the bounds of our break view. So if, say, we want to create a break view from the beginning section of the pipe to the end section of our pipe, and then press OK, you'll see it condenses that pipe down. Now we have the important geometry that we need. We could see that all of these circles kind of fall along the path. We're able to see the thickness and the radius of the top of our section there. And we don't have this entire long section of pipe that's not really needed information at this point. Okay. However, where that information can come in handy is when we actually start dimensioning it. But first, what we want to do is add in our section view. Okay, because what we want to be able to do from this view is look down and see whether or not this is a hollow pipe or a filled in pipe. So what we could do is now we're going to create a section view. Okay, and clicking on section view, clicking on our model, we just want to click on the left and the right boundaries of our physical geometry and then press this check mark. Okay, now you'll see the preview for this still looks like the super long funky thing, but that's okay if we go ahead and click on just any open space for now. I kind of want it in this orientation, so I'm going to actually go above and press OK. You'll notice that the section view also gets condensed down to carry this broken view that we just added, which is really, really helpful. Okay, and for some reason, whenever we're working with kind of these parts, Fusion sometimes will just add in these center lines. So we can go ahead and actually just delete these because they're not helpful for our geometry right now. And it's actually making it a little more confusing to see what we're looking at. But you'll see now we have our section view drawn out from the part. Okay? So that's essentially how you would create the section and broken views. Now, the cool thing with this is whenever you have a broken view, if you go in and you try to dimension it out, what you'll notice is that if we click on the bounds of our part here, so this is kind of where the edge of this kind of curve lines up with. So if we click on the edge of this curve and then we click on this, you'll see that right now it appears to show a 92.5 millimeter dimension. But if we just click to confirm it, you'll see it snaps to the true dimension value of 700. which is really, really nice. Okay, so that is essentially how you would use the section view and the broken view to fully describe this kind of object here. So now on your own, using the tools that we've learned already, go through and add the rest of the dimensions needed for this part.